Normally in fishery science we're dealing with dwindling resources and an ever higher demand for those resources, but today I actually get to talk about a success story in fisheries management. And it didn't take a whole lot of enforcement officers or complicated legislation. All it took was for a community to take responsibility for the resources right on their doorstep. And of course I'm talking about the Mussel Conservancy at Umdloti. Now, of course, as most of you know, it's very easy to collect brown mussels. It's very accessible. As long as you go and buy a permit, you can go anywhere and collect mussels. And as most of you know, Central Durban, and I'm speaking specifically about Umdloti and Umhlanga, is highly populated. It's a popular tourist destination, and harvesting effort traditionally in that area was very high. People went there basically every weekend to collect mussels. Now, even in the 1980s, there was a clear indication that the mussel beds in that area was under threat. Now, the Freighters and Martin did some surveys. They were from Ori. They did some surveys in the 1980s on mussel beds on the south coast and on the bluff and also at Umdloti. And they found that the mussel densities varied by season, but that mussel densities at Umdloti was consistently lower than at the other sites. They also found that the biomass was declining at Umdloti during their 3-year study. Furthermore, they saw that the mean size of mussels that was collected by recreationals declined by 16% during their study, while the time that it took for them to collect their bag limit of 50 mussels was increasing by 21%. So even then they suggested that maybe we should close this area. But nothing happened, of course. And then in 1993, there was this national multi-institutional project that was launched to look at mussel recruitment. And Ori was responsible for looking at mussel beds in the central KwaZulu-Natal. Most of that work was done by Bruce Tomlin. And he selected 3 sites at Umdloti to monitor and another site at Peace Cottage, which is just north of the Umhlanga Lagoon. At the same time, he looked at mussel beds between the Isipingo and the Bluff area, and also between the Mercy and Tinley Manor. At the same time, Scotty Carl was working on the subsistence fishery at Cozy Bay, and together they produced a paper. And firstly, they found that, and they compared the subsistence fishery at Cozy Bay with the fisheries in central Durban or in central KwaZulu-Natal. And firstly, they found that there was very few mussels left in the Bluff and Isipingo area, and that the fishing mortality of recreationals at Umdloti and Umhlanga was higher than the fishing mortality by subsistence fisheries at Cozy Bay. And at that time, Tomlin suggested that the fishery or the fishing effort would have to be reduced by between 17 and 23% to prevent stock collapse. Now, luckily, at the same time, a number of Umdloti residents became very concerned about the status of the mussel beds, particularly those mussel beds that's close to a parking area on the beach. And this led to a voluntary closure in 1995 and again in 1997. And eventually, a mussel ban was added to the municipal bylaws in 1998. Now, this is the area. So the area that they would close is basically the southern beaches of Umdloti. And luckily for us, 2 of those long-term monitoring sites that Tomlin established was in the conservancy area. That's that one. The third one was just outside of the conservancy area, in a boundary area. And then we had Peace Cottage, which is about 2 kilometers south of the conservancy. The harvesting pressure historically was very high on these 2 conservancy sites because it's close to a parking area. Harvesting was more moderate here because it's very far from a parking area. And then the Peace Cottage site is very remote. There's no safe parking unless you belong to a fishing club. They have somewhere there's a fishing clubhouse, and you can park there if you're a member. So harvesting there was relatively low. So at each of these sites, a 20-meter transect was established in the middle of the mussel bed, horizontal with the shoreline. And we sampled the mussels by estimating, that's a 20-meter transect, we sampled the mussels by estimating percentage cover in half a meter by half a meter quadrant every meter along the transect line. So we have, we estimate percentage cover in 20 quadrants at each sampling site at each sampling period. And it was mainly, for the most part, it was sampled biannually during a low recruitment period in autumn and a high mussel recruitment period in springtime. I also looked at the mussel catch and effort data that Ori has been collecting over the last 30 years. The data comes from various sources. For some years I only have voluntary catch returns, but for the most part Ori conducted questionnaire surveys with permit holders, and they conducted it over the phone or by mail or even online. And from that we can get a percentage of people, or we get an estimate of how many people actually use their permits, many do not use their permits, and where they use their permits. So we can work out annual mussel, the number of mussel collectors. We also get an idea of how many outings they're conducting and what's the bag catch per outing. So we can work out an estimate of annual catches. So this is the percentage cover data for the two conservancy sites. And as you can see, percentage cover dropped from about 60% to about 40%, less than 40% in both of these sites because of high fishing pressure before the mussel ban. And then after 1998, the percentage cover steadily increased and reached a peak here of about 80% in 2012. So in the boundary area, the harvesting pressure was more moderate. So the percentage cover was relatively stable before the mussel ban was introduced. There was a slight increase, and then since then it's been relatively stable and increasing steadily. For Peace Cottage, which is our exploited site, it's very different. It starts out at about 40% in 1993. It suddenly increases to 60% in 1996. And then there's a very sharp drop to 1998 to less than 10%. And it stayed at a very low level for a number of years, and the percentage cover only started to increase around about 2004. And since then it's been increasing. And then there's another sharp drop off after 2010. So this is the catch and effort data that we got from the survey, from surveys with the permit holders. The blue line is the number of mussel collectors at Umdloti, and this is the annual catches at Umdloti. The dashed line is the number of collectors expressed as a percentage of the total of number of collectors in KwaZulu-Natal. And as you can see, the mussel ban was instituted here in 1998, and there's a huge drop from 1997, when there was about 1,400 collectors, to less than 400 collectors in 1998. So this purple square represents when the permit fees were increased by about 20%, and this diamond represents when there was a lot of storm events. So these things could influence catch and effort, but you can see the biggest influence on catch and effort was definitely the mussel ban at Umdloti. Okay, so this is the percentage cover for the conservancy area, one of the sites in the conservancy area, for the boundary area, and then again the number of mussel collectors at Umdloti. So the problem with the data we get from permit holders is that it's not that specific. We know they are collecting somewhere in Umdloti, but we don't know whether they're in the conservancy or outside the conservancy. But in spite of that, you can see when the mussel ban was introduced, it did decrease the total effort at Umdloti. I also know that the residents of Umdloti is very vigilant, and they're very good at keeping people out of their mussel beds. I have been approached while sampling on several occasions, asking me, by very angry residents, asking me, what am I doing there? And I've very rarely seen anybody trying to collect anything there. I have seen a lot of people collecting mussels outside, just south of the conservancy area. So I am assuming that most of this effort is happening outside of the conservancy area. So very different for Peace Cottage. This is again the percentage cover for Peace Cottage, the number of mussel collectors at Peace Cottage, and the annual catches at Peace Cottage. So traditionally or historically there was a very low harvesting pressure at Peace Cottage. You can see here less than 3% of all the collectors in KwaZulu-Natal collected there, and they collected less than 1% of the catches. And Tomlin suggests that it's because of this low harvesting pressure and also a very high settlement event at the end of 1995 that you get this increase in percentage cover. Then there's a sudden drop down to 1998, and he describes it in his report as that there was only a few large mussels left in the cracks on the rock platform. And Tomlin suggests that that was because there was a sanding event in 1996 followed by extensive poaching. And this would also explain why the number of collectors dropped so much from 1997 to 1998, because there was simply not any mussels left there anymore. The percentage cover started decreasing again after about 2004, and during that same period you can see that the mussel catches at Peace Cottage is also increasing. So people are starting to conduct more outings there because there are more mussels. And then there was another sanding event here in 2011 which decreased the percentage cover, but you can see the mussel catches are quite high still there. We were there in April of this year, and at the moment the percentage cover there is again less than 10%, again at this level. And it's probably going to take another few years before it starts recovering again. So it does, just let me go back. So even though there was harvesting, you can say, well, okay, Peace Cottage did recover eventually, but the recovery of the mussel bed was very much delayed. It took about 6 years before there was any recovery in the percentage cover. You also have to remember that the level of harvesting is very low in this area. It's at least 10 times lower than it is at Umhloti. So it's very unlikely that the beds at Umhloti would have recovered if the harvesting pressure was not substantially reduced in that area. So to conclude, this is a photo of one of the conservancy areas, a recent photo. You can see fairly decent mussel cover there. This is the mussel bed at Peace Cottage. It's just the last 5 meters of the transect, and this is the only place where there is still mussel beds left at Peace Cottage. Most of the transect looks like this. Just little patches of mussels here and there. So it seems that the mussel ban at Umhloti definitely had a positive effect on the mussel beds in the conservancy and also on the boundary. Now the conservancy haven't been without problems. In 2010 there was a group of fishermen that was questioning whether this was legal and whether they really should not be harvesting there, and it was mainly because they were not allowed to fish there. It wasn't about collecting mussels. Of course, the situation wasn't helped by the very aggressive attitude taken by some of the Umhloti residents, and it ended up in a long court battle, which the Umhloti residents won, and the conservancy remained. Maybe it could have been handled better, maybe more proactive communication about what the benefits of the conservancy are compared to this relative small portion of coast that was lost would have helped to resolve the issues. But notwithstanding these problems, the Umhloti Conservancy has proven that conservancies is a very effective tool to protect our vulnerable intertidal resources, even in highly populated areas like Umhloti. And then finally, I just want to thank everybody that has over the last 23 years been involved in this project and helped with all sorts of things, collecting data and entering data, and also, of course, the residents of Umhloti. And then thank you very much for your time.